Hello and welcome to the first episode of Full Court Press. I'm Michael Lyon along with my co-host Rish Bhatnagar, and this podcast is something I've been looking forward to starting. We're going to be talking a lot about the NBA, so if you like basketball, you're in the right place. We're going to open things up by talking about, or do you want to say hi, Rish?
Yeah, I mean, I would just really like to say I'm also really looking forward to this podcast and making Michael look like a fool.
Awesome. So we're going to open things off by talking about free agency, all the big moves that happened this offseason, because a lot happened this offseason. We're going to do a segment inspired by Rish called Good or Bad, evaluating each of these big moves that happened. So starting off with Kawhi. He went from Toronto, won Finals MVP with the Raptors, and left to join the Los Angeles Clippers this offseason. So, Rish, what do you think? Good or bad move?
Well, I actually think it's a great move for both Kawhi and the NBA. Kawhi's always made it his intention to go back home to LA where he was born and raised, and I think he had the opportunity to do it, and he just did it, and that's perfectly fine, that's perfectly valid, and he's an unrestricted free agent, so that's up to him. I also think it's great for the NBA in general because I think the NBA works best when players are allowed to decide where they go. I'm a big fan of player mobility in general. I think that players should choose to control their own destiny, and I think that this is overall really great for the NBA as well. You prove that the NBA has always been a star-driven league, and I think when stars are making the biggest waves, like NBA free agency, that's what's best for the NBA.
All right. I kind of agree. I don't really know if I care about player mobility as much. I mean, I guess it's nice for them to be able to decide, but for us as fans, sometimes it's good for smaller market teams to be able to keep their star players and high draft picks. But regardless, I think this was a great move for Kawhi for his career, because if he wins the championship and Finals MVP with the Clippers, that's 3 different franchises. He would be the first player to win Finals MVP with 3 franchises, I believe. That's a huge milestone that'll throw him right up there with the greats, which he kind of, if he wants to make a legacy, same kind of legacy like LeBron and KD kind of have, like Jordan has as like one of the game's all-time greats. This is a great argument for him if he can win with the Clippers. His numbers don't do it by themselves, so he kind of needs something like this. He's known as a winner, and if he can keep that up with the Clippers, it looks great for him, and they're up there with the favorites to win the championship, so...
I agree, but would you really not think that Kawhi moving to the Clippers is not bad is not good for the NBA? I mean, just think about it. Like for the entirety from July 1st, from the opening of free agency all the way up until Kawhi's decision, right? The only thing the sports world could talk about is where's Kawhi going?
Yeah. Let me cut you off because I think it's great for the NBA. I think it's great for NBA parity. Like the favorites to win the championship is not very clear, a lot less clear than it's been in previous years. Him being in LA is a big part of that because there's the big LA rivalry, and they're kind of the top 2 or like presumed top 2. But other teams could win. Either of them could win. Great. All right, let's move on to Anthony Davis. I'll let you start off again.
Well, Anthony Davis' situation was a little bit different. It was a trade, so Anthony Davis did not leave on his own free will. He kind of forced his way out of the Pelicans. I think when it comes to the player in all these scenarios, whether it's Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Jimmy Butler, so on and so forth, I think it's always good for the player. Like, I don't think there's ever a scenario where a player chooses to leave a place and have that be bad for the player.
Kevin Durant in 2016.
Okay, yeah. Ended up working out for him because he won 2 championships.
I don't think it worked out for him. I think that was the most devastating career move that an NBA player has ever done, ever. I don't think his legacy could have been hurt anymore.
I would really not think that winning 2 consecutive finals and 2 consecutive finals MVPs while beating LeBron in the finals is considered a devastating career decision.
They have asterisks next to them. He joined a 73-win team, and this is a beaten down narrative right now. By now, it's been years, but he joined a 73-win team, like
and
arguably
immediately became the best player on it.
Right, but they don't need him to win, so there's always going to be an asterisk. They'd won before he got there. Anything that he won with the Thunder would have meant a lot more. And even though he did win 2 Finals MVP, he wasn't satisfied with it. He wasn't happy there. He left because of it. So I would consider that a failed experiment by most Matrix. Like, of course they're going to win the championship. They're so much more talented than the next best team in the league.
Well, I wouldn't consider it a failed experience at all, because the end result was championships. He got what he wanted. And he was the best player in the finals both years. He won the Finals MVP because of it. It's not like Steph carried him through the finals or Steph carried him through the playoffs or anybody else on the Warriors did that. Kevin Durant was an instrumental part of the reason why the Warriors won, and I think that that's really important.
I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, he just didn't prove what he wanted to prove. Like, his career is not complete. He didn't do what he thought he was going to be able to do there, and it caused him to leave. Like, he would certainly be better off. Like, if he could have just joined the Nets or a similar situation in 2016, I don't hate him for leaving. I just hate that he went to the Warriors. What if he joined a Nets type situation in 2016? That would be a way better decision for him. They might not have won 2 championships, but 1 championship would have made him look a lot better than both of those did.
I struggle to see how a distinction can be made between Kevin Durant joining the Warriors and, let's just say, like LeBron and his decision in 2011, or even what LeBron essentially did this year, which was essentially create his own team and get Anthony Davis to come here. Like, we're not going to sit here and pretend that LeBron didn't heavily recruit Anthony Davis throughout the entire year. And,
he did.
Yeah, and he created a team that he believes can best win a championship by adding another superstar player and one who could potentially and probably, I think, outscore LeBron and out-rebound LeBron through this entire season. Like I think there could be a real debate as to who the best player on the Lakers could be next year, given LeBron's recent decline.
I agree. I think that's fine. But the difference is the Heat in 2011 and even the Lakers with Anthony Davis, these are unproven commodities in terms of star players that have never played together before. And you're just kind of getting together with your friends. That's what LeBron's doing, trying to put together a team that can win a championship. The Lakers are not consensus favorites to win the championship, though. And Kevin Durant, he was the one. No, let me finish this. He was the one that blew a 3-1 lead against this championship quality team. There was a championship before he got there. He lost to them, and then he joined, and they were title favorites by such wide margins that we've never seen this before. At least not since I started following the NBA. So it's completely different.
Okay, when LeBron created the Heat were instant title contenders. We're not.
Not overwhelming favorites. Like, they weren't Vegas odds-on favorites. Going into start the seasons, the Warriors with Kevin Durant were like 2-1 in terms of that they're more likely to win a championship than not. We never saw anything like that with Miami. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but there's no way they were odds-on favorites to win the championship, and they only won 2 out of 4. When the Warriors were healthy with Kevin Durant, they never lost. All right, that's enough of a tangent on that subject, but it's an NBA podcast, and these are hot NBA topics, so it's good to touch on it a little bit. Speaking of Kevin Durant, he went to the Nets this season. So what do you think about that move, good or bad?
I think it's good for Kevin Durant, and in this case, I think it's actually great for the league, because while I agree with Kevin Durant's initial decision to go to the Warriors, I think it's his prerogative to do whatever he wants with his career. I think from a purely parity standpoint, I think him going to the Nets was amazing, because I mean, look at the season that we're about to have. Like, we actually this year have no idea who's going to win the championship. I mean, we all have our picks, but do we really know like who's the favorite right now? Like, are the Clippers the favorite? Are the Lakers the favorite? And next year when Kevin Durant gets healthy, are the Nets the favorites with Kyrie and KD?
Yeah, I think it was a good move. It was a great move. Obviously, we just went over what I think about him going to Golden State. So obviously, I'm going to be happy about him leaving. I think it's a situation for good parity. I don't have too much else to add, but his Nets teammate, Kyrie, left my Boston Celtics. I know this is our first podcast, so some of my listeners might not know. I'm a lifelong Boston Celtics fan. So Kyrie left us to join the Nets. Good or bad move? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a great move for the Nets. I think with the Celtics, I think in a vacuum, I think it's not that great because I think losing that sort of talent is just is crippling. However, they did end up getting Kemba Walker, so there was a silver lining there. But overall, I think I'm getting a little tired of reiterating this. I think player mobility is fantastic for the NBA. I think that in a star-driven league like the NBA is, when stars make waves during the offseason, that's great for the NBA, that's great for publicity, that's gret for everything NBA related, jersey sales, so on and so forth.
You keep talking about how good player mobility is, and that's fine. I mean, that's not really something I'm gonna look at. Like, yeah, good for him for going to Brooklyn. As a Celtics fan, I'm happy about it. I'm really happy we replaced him with Kemba because it was kind of a failed experiment. I kind of expected him to leave. I like our replacement. But this is supposed to be about the players. So for Kyrie's career move, I think it was pretty obvious and mutual in Boston that what we were doing wasn't really working. Everybody was so happy, or unhappy, I'm sorry. Not that the results were like unbearably bad, but we didn't want to lose to Milwaukee in the second round, especially not in the beat-down fashion that we did. We didn't seem to have the firepower. We didn't have the team chemistry. So good for Kyrie to move on. It's a pretty good situation in Brooklyn, especially when Kevin Durant comes back. So good for him. Paul George requests a trade from the Thunder to join Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know. I think this was definitely the most shocking free agency acquisition because nobody saw anything about Paul George coming. And, of course, there are all these reports out there about Kawhi actively recruiting Paul George and convincing him to request a trade, and I think that was really, really crazy. And nobody saw it coming until the day it actually happened. Like, for 9 days in free agency, they managed to keep Paul George's unrest to a complete radio silence. Like, nobody knew it was happening. And then when Kawhi went to the Clippers, everyone was like, okay, I mean, that was kind of expected. It wasn't crazy because the Clippers were on his list of teams. But then when Paul George went with him, I think that's when the NBA world went crazy. In terms of Paul George, I think it's a great career move for him because obviously, again, he's from LA, and I think he kind of wanted to get out of Oklahoma City. I don't think he ever really wanted to be there in the first place. When he got traded from Indiana, he got traded to Oklahoma City, which I'm pretty sure was not his first choice. I think he was pretty vocal about the Lakers trying to be for his first choice. And I think he kind of got what he wanted, and he kind of got out of the whole Russell Westbrook, Billy Donovan. I think Billy Donovan's a terrible coach, by the way. I think the reason why the Thunder weren't more successful was because of Billy Donovan and his terrible system. And I think he got out of the situation and got to a great one. I mean, Doc Rivers is a great coach. The Clippers are a great organization.
God, well, it's hard for me because I liked that Thunder team so much. I liked their dynamic. I'm a big Russell Westbrook fan. I like his work ethic. So I was a little bit sad to see a bit broken up, not going to lie. But for Paul George, I think it was objectively a good career decision because you're more likely to win with the Clippers over the Thunder. And I don't think he's going to look worse doing it. Like, it has none of that stigma attached, like the Kevin Durant type join a super team. I mean, he's just teaming up with Kawhi, which is fine. And I'm happy for him. Go back to California. It's great for the NBA because all of a sudden the Clippers might be better than the Lakers, who are also atop the NBA right now. Like that tangent move. Russ requests a trade after he realizes that duo is being broken up. The plug is being pulled. And he ends up in Houston with James Harden. I know you're a Rockets fan. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, a little background. I've been a lifelong Rockets fan, just like he's been a lifelong Celtics fan. And as a Rockets fan, I actually initially didn't like the move. I think, okay, so when Russell Westbrook has the ball, it's clearly a big upgrade for him because James Harden is one of the most prolific scorers and most prolific shooters we've had in this league in the past 20 years. And I think that it frees up a lot of what he would like to do. And in Oklahoma City, there was a severe lack of shooting on that team. Other than Paul George, you can't really point to any other good shooter on that team. Could you really?
No.
Yep, there you go. So, this floor is going to be a lot more spaced for him to do what he does best. However, I think when James Harden has the ball, I think we run into a little bit of a spacing issue considering Westbrook is a terrible three-point shooter. He's gotten worse over the course of his career so far. And even last year, his free throw shooting took a hit. He was less than 70%, I think, from the free throw line last season. And I think when James Harden has the ball, there's going to be a lack of spacing because I think when you pass the ball to Russell Westbrook at the three-point line, I think defenders would rather him shoot that three rather than drive, where we know how athletic he is and how great of a finisher he is. So as a Rockets fan, I didn't enjoy the move, but I think for Russell Westbrook, the decision was pretty clear. Paul George leaves. Sam Presti calls, decides to blow the whole thing up and restart from scratch. And I don't think why you got to take that, right? And you're going to James Harden, so the chances of you winning a title is still there. And I think the talent-wise is undeniable with the Rockets. It's great. Like 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA. That's great. And also, from the Rockets' perspective.
Hold up. Westbrook, a top 10 player. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, that might be a little Rockets bias coming in, but I think that he is a top 10 player, I think. Maybe number 10, but anyway, for the Rockets, it's a clear decision to move off that terrible Chris Paul contract, and I think we got kind of a steal, to be honest. 2 first-rounders and an aging Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. I think I'd take that trade.
So you do like it for the Rockets or you don't? Because you started off saying you don't.
Yeah, from a basketball perspective, I'm not the biggest fan. However, when you get that kind of deal, like aging Chris Paul plus 2 first-rounders for Russell Westbrook, who is a top 10 player, I think you have to like it for the Rockets.
All right. Well, I think it's a great move for the Rockets and for Russell Westbrook. I'm really excited for him that he's going to be able to get this opportunity in Houston. I've always been a big fan of talent over fit. I think talent's a lot more important. Russell Westbrook is extremely talented. All the shooting woes and whatever, I don't really care about that. I think he'll get it together. He just wants to win. And he's so explosive in transition. I know you mentioned he won't be able to space as well because he's not a great three-point shooter, which fair enough, but Houston doesn't need that as much. Like, they have a bunch of three-point threats to the extent where their whole offense is kind of built around that. So the fact that Russ, who's going to be one of their primary ball handlers, despite James Harden, is not the best three-point shooter, I don't think is going to be their Achilles heel. I don't think that's very exploitable. Obviously, they would prefer him to be a great three-point shooter, but the energy that he's going to bring, the transition points, getting out in transition, the rebounds that he gets when he starts running down the court, I think it's going to be great for Houston, and they're going to be a team to watch. Maybe right up there with LA Clippers and LA Lakers. We'll have to see how that goes. But the star power is real, and I love it for Russ and the Rockets. So last couple of free agency moves. Jimmy Butler leaves Philadelphia to go to Miami. Unless he likes Miami a lot, I don't know about that move, because with Jimmy Butler in Philadelphia, especially if they still added Al Horford, they would be clear favorites to come out of the East, and Miami's not quite there. Philadelphia arguably still there even without Jimmy Butler, but I don't love it for Jimmy Butler's career. I mean, they love it for Miami, I guess, but they're probably not going to win anything anyway. Probably a playoff team, first round exit. So it's kind of an okay move. If Butler really likes Miami, I think it's fine. What do you think?
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Pat Riley's been on the record in saying that he will not tank. So for Miami, the decision to get Jimmy Butler is obvious. However, for Jimmy Butler, I think he's finally made his priorities clear. I don't think he's really into winning like he said he was when he was with the Timberwolves. I was actually a big Jimmy Butler fan prior to this move. I just think that moving to the Heat is such clearly a money decision. And that's fine because, not everyone needs to have a goal of winning a championship. People who just go to the NBA and make their money and leave. And I think that's what Jimmy Butler is doing. I don't think they have a chance to win this season. I don't think they have a chance to win next season. I don't think they have a chance to win the year after that either. Like they're not going to win the championship, and Jimmy Butler is just going to be on that team. They're going to be a good average to good first round exit.
Fair enough. Jimmy Butler's going to be trying to win a championship, though. I give him credit in terms of being a great competitor like that. It was probably a money decision, but I don't think that's going to influence his effort level or his like aspirations to try to do good in the playoffs. That being said, they probably won't.
If you really felt that way, then why would he not have just stayed in Philly? Because like he's got the best chance to win with Embiid and Simmons and the rest of that great team.
Because of the money, you know.
So you're agreeing that he prioritizes money over winning right now?
I don't know if I'd agree with that. I think he prioritizes money in terms of the contracts he's going to sign. But I think he would be just as motivated to win a championship on the Suns as he would on the Warriors. I think it's his competitive nature, his personality to always give 100%, 110%, trying to win a championship. I think that's his mindset. I don't think he cares where he's at. That's why he didn't like Minnesota. He felt like Karl Anthony and Andrew Wiggins didn't want to win bad enough. And he also, I think reports came out that he didn't like Andrew Wiggins' contract, but part of that is because he wasn't working hard enough to earn that contract. So, yeah, I think he cares. He's going to care about winning a lot no matter where he's at, even if he went to Miami because of the money.
I guess that's fair enough, but I just think that at this point in Jimmy Butler's career, he is reaching the middle of his prime / end of his prime. I think that you really have to the team that you go to really matters a lot, especially if you have no other stars. I think it's pretty clear right now in this league that you need at least 2 top quality stars to be a title contender. I think that I guess Milwaukee being the example, because I wouldn't consider Chris Middleton like a great player, but I think that team is talented enough to be a contender anyway, and I think the East is bad. But overall, like, people consider the title contenders to have 2 top flight players, and even if we consider Jimmy Butler to be one, I think he's a fringe top quality player. He needs another one, and I think the Heat wasn't the team for that.
All right, well, I don't think they're going to be winning much anyway outside getting to the first round.
That we can agree on.
So Kemba is the last move that we're going to talk about. I'm a Celtics fan. I'm happy he went to Boston. I'll let you give your take first, good or bad.
I mean, okay, in terms of whether it's good for the Celtics, I think it's great for the Celtics because right after they lose Kyrie, they get Kemba. So I would consider that more of a discounted version of Kyrie because I don't think Kemba Walker's as good, but it's definitely good for the Celtics, and I think it's great for Kemba. I think the Hornets have been one of the worst run franchises so far. The Batum contract was terrible. They experimented with Dwight Howard and Tony Parker in an effort to sort of win. Sorry, Michael Jordan, you're great, but you're a bad owner. I think that getting off of the Hornets was great for Kemba. I think he's finally in a situation where he's got a great coach, a great organization. I think they're really in contention to get out of the East this season.
Jordan needs to get his stuff together. I love this for Kemba Walker. He has a winning personality. He won at UConn, and now he gets to go to a competing franchise in the Boston Celtics. It's great for Boston. Kyrie's probably objectively more talented, but at the same time, the team chemistry was so off that I think we might be better served having Kemba, especially it's hard to account for the development of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown because Jaylen Brown's wanting like a 5-year, $170 million contract, by the way. So hopefully that means he's putting in some work in the offseason.
Hopefully he doesn't get it for the Celtics.
I heard we offered him 4 years, $80 million, which I'd be fine, but I think he wants more. That being said, we did lose Al Horford. It's still a good move for Kemba. It's still a good move for the Celtics, and there's a chance that we're better than we were last year if these young players develop in ways that we like. And Kemba is a better fit than Kyrie, which it's hard to be a worse fit because that team just is some bad juju around it, bad vibes, bad everything. So glad to have that all in the past, refreshed, remotivated. and let's do this with Kemba. All right, let's move on to conference rankings. What do we think? We can start in the East. What do we think the standings are going to look like at the end of the year? I'll let you go first.
Okay. So we're going with the East first?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so with the Eastern Conference, I have the Sixers at 1. I think that their talent is just undeniable. Even with the loss of Jimmy Butler, I think they will be the number 1 seed in the East. Although I don't think they're the best team. I think the Bucks are still better. So I would go with Philly 1, the Bucks 2, the Celtics 3, the Pacers 4. I think that with Oladipo returning, that team will return to its grittiness, and I think Nate McMillan is an underrated coach. I think he's great. And then I'll have the Nets at 5, the new look Nets, the Kyrie Nets. KD's not back. If KD was back, I think they'd be the undeniable favorites to get out of the East, but he is not, and therefore they are not. So I had 5, right? So I put 5. I'll have the Heat at 6. With Jimmy Butler, and I'll have Toronto at 7. I think that Toronto's roster was pretty underrated. I think Kyle Lowry is a above average starting point guard. I think Marc Gasol was a great acquisition midseason, and I think Pascal Siakam has proven to get better and better over the course of the past couple of years. And I think that they will still make the playoffs with that Kawhi. Although, do they have a chance to come out of the East? Probably not. And in the 8th seed, I will have the Detroit Pistons. I think Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond is just a good combination. Good enough to get you in the playoffs, not good enough to get you much further than that.
They had a Derrick Rose, too. So this isn't going to be the most exciting, I don't think, because it's going to look pretty similar from me. The West will be more interesting. I have 1 Milwaukee, so a little bit different. I think Milwaukee's like the consensus one, with maybe they're going back and forth in terms of who's most likely to win the conference, but I feel like Milwaukee's the more consensus 1 seed. But anyway, I'm going to go with Milwaukee, Philadelphia at 2, Boston at 3, Indiana at 4, Miami at 5. So this is a little bit different too. I like Eric Spoelstra. I like Jimmy Butler. I like that they're not tanking. Deion Waiters is pretty good. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And Brooklyn at 6, Detroit at 7, and then Toronto at 8. I like the Pistons are okay. They got embarrassed by Milwaukee in the playoffs, but that's to be expected. They're bringing back an okay core. Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond doesn't really fit with today's modern, fast-paced style. But they added Derrick Rose, who's pretty fast in his prime when he's healthy. So that's the East. Now let's get into the West.
We had the same 8 teams for the East, right? We had the same 8 teams?
Yeah, we did. We had the same 8 teams. A little bit different order. All right, let's move out West. Are you ready, or you want me to go first?
I'll let you take it this time.
Okay. So we talked about how the title favorites are the Lakers and the Clippers. For the regular season, I'm actually going to take the Houston Rockets to finish the number 1 seed. And it's something that I think they're a better regular season team because they're more experienced together. The Russell and Harden thing is new, and that might take a little bit of time to figure out, but the core identity of that team is pretty much the same from the last few years. That's not the case with the Clippers. That's not the case with the Lakers. Paul George coming off a shoulder injury. Kawhi Leonard always seems to want load management. LeBron James is getting old. Anthony Davis is I think dealing with an injury or something.
Yeah, he was dealing with an injury at the start of the season.
Yeah. So he's coming off of an injury. And the Rockets are just going to be firing on all cylinders. I think they underperformed a little bit last regular season. So I think they're going to be the most motivated to have a strong regular season. Because the Clippers and Lakers also, their confidence will not be hindered by regular season losses. So Rockets won. And then all that said about the Clippers and Lakers, they're still ridiculously talented. So I'll take Clippers at 2, Lakers at 3, and then Utah at 4. I really liked their addition of Mike Conley, Bogdanovich. Not too flashy, not too high profile, but they have a really good deep team. Not a ton of star power, but I think it's a good regular season team to get the 4 seed. 5, I'll take Portland. I like what Damian Lillard did in the playoffs last year. Big fan of him. I think the West is so loaded, but they're gonna run it back to an extent that they'll be a solid contending team again. That's 5. Number 6, I'll take the Golden State Warriors. They're bringing back Draymond and Steph, and they're adding D'Angelo Russell. You have to respect that, but the West is crowded. I'll take them at 6, with the Nuggets at 7. Lower than some people, but that's okay. I think they're deep, and they maybe overperformed a little bit last year. They don't have as much top-heavy talent as some of the other teams in the West. So I'll take them at 7, and the Spurs at 8, with DeMar DeRozan, Aldridge under Popovich's system. And Dallas Mavericks looking in pretty close, but I'm not convinced that they're talented or experienced enough. Plus, Kristaps is so fragile. Although there are reports that he's buffed up this year, I don't know if that'll translate to less injuries because his body type in general is just so fragile. I don't know how they're going to want to do load management with him too. So I'll take them on the outside looking in, and then same with the Pelicans.
Okay, yeah, I think I also agree with you. I think the Rockets are going to get the 1 seed this year, and I mean, for the exact reasons you described. I think the Clippers and the Lakers will be taking time off their stars, and Mike D'Antoni has been vocal against doing that with his stars. I don't think James Harden is going to take many games off. I don't think Russell Westbrook's going to take many games off. Therefore, I think the Rockets will win a lot of regular season games. So I got the Rockets at 1 as well. I got the Clippers at 2. And I think this is where I'm going to be a bit different from you. I have the Nuggets at 3, okay? And while I have the Nuggets at 3, I do not think they're worthy of the 3 spot. I just think that with LeBron and the Lakers going to be taking some time, I also think the Lakers have a little bit of a lack of depth. So when LeBron and AD don't play, I think they're going to have a lot of trouble winning those games because the West is such a gauntlet this year. So I have the Nuggets at 3. I have the Lakers at 4. I have the Warriors at 5. I think that the Warriors are going to be one of the sleeper teams. I think they're being slept on a little this year. You mentioned earlier in the season earlier in the segment how Steph, KD, and Draymond won a championship without them. They got to the finals 2 straight years. Why can't they do it again? I think Steph Curry is going to be the MVP this year. I think without Kevin Durant taking all those shots away, I think Steph Curry will step it up. And I think Steph Curry will average 30 points a game and shoot an incredibly efficient from the field, and I think that'll be great. So yeah, I have them at 5. And I have the Jazz at 6. I think the Jazz are a little overrated. I think Quinn Snyder is a fantastic coach. I think he deserves to be in the Coach of the Year conversation the past couple of years, as he was. I think Rudy Gobert is a little overrated as well. I don't think his I think on the perimeter he's a bit of a liability, as the Rockets have kind of exposed that over the past couple of years. And I don't think the addition of Mike Conley is that big of a deal. So I have Utah at 6. I have Portland at 7. That is really low for Portland, but I think that's more of a statement on the West as a whole rather than how good Portland is. I think that from Golden State to Utah and Portland, I think they're all in that like just second tier category. I actually think Denver's third tier, but I think the reason why they're going to be so good is just they get a lot of regular season wins. And then for 8, I think one of the most underrated acquisitions was the Mavericks getting Kristaps Porzingis. I think the Mavericks will make the playoffs this year at the 8th seed, which means the Spurs are going to miss the playoffs for the first time in 23 years. And I think they're going to finish 9th, just on the outside looking in, with the Pelicans finishing in 10th.
Okay, so I wrote down both of our lists here. The most obvious difference is the Denver Nuggets. I think they overperformed last year. I think you're stance is more like they're a team that's built to win regular season games, and that's what we saw last year. I think, I don't know, variance worked in their favor. I don't know. They played really hard. I don't know. I just don't.
They're very young, and I think that that helps them win regular season games, but youth is typically not a good factor for postseason play. And I do agree with you. Like, I think the Nuggets are probably the 7th best team in the West this season. I think they are the 7th best team. But if we have to go off of ranking and where they're going to be seated, I think they're going to be seated a lot higher than people think. Like, we have Houston. We both have Houston at 1, but I don't think we have Houston winning the championship this year, do we?
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear that just because we have them at 1 doesn't necessarily mean we pick them to win the championship. But I think that just like Houston is built to win regular season games because D'Antoni doesn't rest his stars, I think the youth, the general youth of Denver lends itself to regular season wins.
Maybe. They re-signed Jamal Murray this offseason, gave him a pretty big contract. I think he's a little bit overrated. I don't know. Jokic is like talking about fringe top 10 players. I almost see like Denver as a upgraded Miami, like the Miami of the West. And well, they did get a lot of regular season wins last year. So we'll see how they do this year. But on a night-to-night basis, I'm not going to be trusting them a ton, at least relative to... Some people have them winning the West in the regular season this year.
I think that's a bit of a stretch. That's a bit of a stretch.
It's been thrown around by some people. I just think that they're a little bit overrated because of their depth, I guess. Say, other than Jokic, I don't really know why people like them so much. Their performance last year, I guess, which fair enough, but I think it was a fluke.
Well, I mean, they have a decently deep roster. I mean, like Gary Harris, Jamal Murray, Will Barton, Nikola Jokic. That's a solid core of guys, and I think Mike Malone is also a really good coach.
Well, we'll see.
Home court advantage is a thing. That team has consistently had the best home record for the past 2 years, along with the Spurs. That is something.
Maybe. We'll see how they do this year. We both have Houston at number 1. We should at least talk about that a little bit because most people probably have the Clippers or the Lakers. I kind of talked about why. I think you kind of touched on why. I think... I mean, I really like this pick as Houston is number 1. I think Houston's flying a little bit under the radar this year because people are kind of low on the chemistry that Harden and Westbrook are going to have. We will see if that flops like people think it. I think you're more inclined to think, even though you have them at 1, you're more inclined to think that them playing together is going to be a failure, more so than I am, at least, because I can't even see it going wrong. I know I don't really think it matters that Westbrook can't stretch the floor. I think they're still going to be a great three-point shooting team. Harden's an offensive monster. Westbrook is going to push them in transition more than they already have. D'Antoni's going to love it. Harden's going to have less of an offensive burden. Maybe he'll use that extra energy and play a little bit more defense. Although, to be fair, I know that his defense has gotten better in the last year or so.
He was second in the league in steals.
Okay. That being said, is obviously his defense is not a quality that people don't talk about him as one of the best players in the league because of his defense. Let's just put it that way. So I think their defense might improve. Westbrook too, being able to play off the ball a lot, and he's not known really for making a ton of cuts or being a spot up shooter, so maybe that'll be extra energy for him to put into defense, but he puts in 110% no matter what, which is why I love watching him. And I think the Rockets are going to be fun to watch this year.
Yeah, I'm a diehard Rockets fan, so obviously I want them to win the chip. And But my concern with the Rockets isn't necessarily the chemistry because they played with each other in OKC and it worked out well, right? I think my concern is just really fit. And yeah, I think talent over fit is a thing, right? However, I think when you mesh Harden and Westbrook together, I don't think you're going to get like the sum of its parts are equal, or like the whole isn't equal to the sum of its parts. I think Harden and Westbrook are individually like more talented than their like fit would be together, and that's the only reason why. And given the like strength of the Clippers and the Lakers, like I think that little dip, that little dip that the lack of fit causes, I think that matters. I think that's the reason why I wouldn't consider them the favorites. Although, go Rockets.
All right. Well, I also want to talk about the Warriors a little bit, but that might fit better in finals predictions. Not that you're going to pick them or I'm going to pick them to go to the finals or win the finals, but some people are I mean, they're internally, I know that the Warriors are talking about like going back, and now they're excited to be the underdogs again. I don't know if I agree with that, so we can talk about with finals predictions. I'll go first. Coming out of the East, I like the Boston Celtics, and I like go as the 3 seed to go and upset Philadelphia and Milwaukee. Obviously, it's biased. I'm a Celtics fan. I'm not going to pretend like I'm sitting here unbiased, but I genuinely think we can win the East. We've had Al Horford joined Philadelphia, but over the last 2 or 3 years, we have been extremely dominant over Philadelphia. I will never go into a game against the Sixers being scared. We've been able to dominate them. We're a better 3-point shooting team than them this year. So I'm excited about that. I think our young players developing, or maybe in a race a little bit with like Ben Simmons developing. And obviously, if he comes in shooting lights out from 3, then we're going to have more problems than I'm anticipating. But I think if we can continue to play defense on Ben Simmons like we have in previous years, just not respecting his shot at all, then I love that matchup. Even with Al Horford, I think it's fine. I love the addition with Kemba. I think we're going to play with great chemistry. I'm a little bit assuming that Jason Tatum's going to build off of what he did year 1 instead of repeat the struggles that he had year 2. But our peak is very high, especially if Jaylen Brown starts playing like he deserves that contract he wants. As far as Milwaukee, they lost Malcolm Brogdon. They're up there with Philadelphia in the first place, but I think we can play them better than we did with Kyrie. Kyrie was in the playoffs talking about how he took 22 shots but should have taken 30, and it's not like he was very efficient. He was like 6 of 22 saying that, or 7 of 22 saying that nonsense. So I think if we get back to our core identity, I'm happy with a matchup against Milwaukee. Giannis will be the best player in that series, but I think we'll be deeper and we'll be I think we'll be better. I trust Brad Stevens, even though we had a bad year last year. And yeah, I'll take Boston coming out of the East. What do you got from the East?
Yeah, I think saying Ben Simmons coming in shooting lights out from 3 is just like saying the Celtics are going to win the East this year. Not going to happen. I think that the Celtics, while I think the loss of Al Horford is actually the reason why I don't think they're going to win the East this year. I think while I do think Kyrie is better than Kemba, I do agree that Kemba is a better fit for the Celtics and their culture and ego-wise. However, the loss of Al Horford is huge. I think one of the reasons why Boston was so dominant against Philadelphia in the past couple years was because of Al Horford's unique ability to shut down Embiid, or at least make Embiid work really, really hard. And Al Horford could shoot 3s, and that brings Embiid out to the perimeter, and that neutralizes his greatest asset of blocking shots, and that's not there this year. So I think Philadelphia is also a better team than Boston. However, that being said, I picked Milwaukee to get out of the East this year. I think Giannis needed that a little bit of experience under his belt. While I do think his lack of shooting 3s is a concern, I think Mike Budenholzer created a very efficient system centered around him distributing the ball a bit and surrounding him with good 3-point shooters. I think that while he's surrounded, he doesn't actually need to be a good one. I do think he'll get better just by virtue of just practicing more. So I got the Bucks coming out of the East this year.
All right. I mean, that's fine. Don't forget about Gordon Hayward, too. I mean, this is almost if we've never played with a healthy Gordon Hayward on our team. And I know it's like making a lot of assumptions, but if Paul George took 2 years to go back to form and he's a top 10 player again. Gordon Hayward he's at least like a top 15 player in Utah, or that's how people were talking about him. That was a big addition when we signed him, and I think it's kind of under the radar now that he hasn't been a good player for 2 years. He missed an entire season, and then he wasn't the same last year. We all know that. But he has the potential and capability to grow back to what he was, maybe even grow on it. So you could Kemba with Gordon Hayward, with growing Jason Tatum, with growing Jaylen Brown, Enes Kanter. I like some of our role players too. I love the grit of Marcus Smart. I think that usually fares well in a playoff type atmosphere. Milwaukee lost Malcolm Brogdon. Like, that's a big loss. I know I already said that, but he was somebody who played great defense with them. This is their starting point guard. It's not something to nudge off, and he's in Indiana now. For Philadelphia, we might have a little bit problem guarding Embiid now. Like, I see that, but I think that our guard play can be better. I think we can exploit their lack of shooting. They lost JJ Redick too. That was a big loss for them because they're not the best 3-point shooting team. Talking about the Sixers. Because they're not the best 3-point shooting team. Maybe we played good defense against Giannis game 1. And I think we might have a little bit of a formula exploiting him in the same way that we can exploit Ben Simmons' lack of shooting. Because Giannis was kind of shooting them against us in that playoff series. I don't know if you remember, but he was shooting like 2 or 3 threes a game. And if that's going to be their offense, if we can kind of force them into doing more of that, I'm excited against how we could do it against Milwaukee and against Philadelphia. There's so much uncertainty, and it's hard to say because, especially for the Celtics, because we don't know how Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum are going to do and how they're going to recover and grow. But I think our potential is easily to win the East. I'm excited about this season. It's a good year for the Celtics.
So who do you have guarding Giannis again?
Well, we did it with a team approach.
Well, I mean, Al Horford's gone, and he's been the best defender on your team so far.
We put him on Giannis, but we were doing this thing where we had like 3 play because Giannis would take the ball off the court and he would be like kind of at the top of the key, and then we'd have like 3 defenders lined up at the free throw line, and like I don't know what kind of stuff Brad Stevens has planned or what, but it seemed to work well enough. Like the announcers were talking it up as it was working in game 1. I don't know, something like that. It's going to be a team effort. We put like sometimes when like Al Horford goes to the bench, we put like Semi Ojeleye on the opponent's best player. I think we can get creative. We're not going to stop Giannis or like Embiid. But I think maybe we can slow them down enough to win the game. Find edges in other places where our edges are better than theirs.
Okay, yeah, I mean, clear Celtics bias. Nothing much to say there. Let's move on to the West. And even though I'm a diehard Rockets fan, and I actually do believe they're the second best team in the West, but unfortunately, they are the second best team in the West. And I think the team coming out of the West is going to be the best, which is the Clippers. I really want to stress that last year, through primarily grit, they took the Warriors 6 games in the first round on the backs of Lou Williams, Patrick Beverley, and Montrezl Harrell. And they're bringing back the same core, I guess, minus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because he got traded to the Thunder, for 2 of probably the 2 best defenders in the NBA, honestly. I think Kawhi Leonard is probably the best defender in the NBA, and then Paul George is probably second best. Or if you want to interchange the 2, it doesn't matter. They're still built on the Clippers. And what I think the result you have is a ridiculously good starting lineup at defense. Kawhi is fantastic. Paul George is fantastic. Patrick Beverley is fantastic. Montrezl Harrell is fantastic. Like, this is an amazing team. They took a already good team and added 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA. Doc Rivers is a great coach. I fully believe in his ability to integrate Kawhi and Paul George in with the offense, and I think the Clippers are going to win not only the West, I have them winning the championship.
So you got Clippers, Bucks, and Clippers beating the Bucks in the finals. How many games?
5.
So not even close.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be close.
All right, now pardon me a little bit. I was kind of nodding off because you were giving that same beaten to death argument about how adding Kawhi and Paul George to the team that took the fully loaded Golden State Warriors to 6 games with Kevin Durant, with all this nonsense. I've heard it all before. It's kind of what everybody says. So nice job having an ununique, boring opinion. Now, that being said, I have the Clippers coming out of the West. I have the Clippers winning the NBA championship because at the end of the day, if you have a team that took the fully loaded Golden State Warriors 6 games in the first round, and you add Kawhi Leonard, and you add Paul George, and you keep Doc Rivers, excuse me, but that team's going to win the NBA championship, even though the Lakers, have LeBron and Anthony Davis. The Clippers are a more complete team. They're a deeper team. They're a more experienced core team, meaning that the Lakers added a lot of pieces who they didn't have last year. They dumped their core and gave it to New Orleans to get Anthony Davis. Now, I know I just gave that same beatdown argument too, but it's a good one. And I'm a Kawhi Leonard fan. I think he's a winner. I love what he did with Toronto. That was so exciting. He's dethroned 2 dynasties now, the Miami Heat and the Warriors.
There's an asterisk to that. If Kevin Durant had played, the Warriors would have won that series hands down.
Right. Well, it was Kawhi's first year in Toronto, and he did all he could. He almost dethroned them in San Antonio too. When they were up like 20 points in that first game, and he got hurt. So now he had a chance to do it again.
That's your shoulda, coulda, woulda arguments there. Like you honestly can't bring up 3 years ago or 2 years ago and say, oh, he almost dethroned the Warriors by almost winning 1 game. Like,
oh, sure I can. I just did.
The Warriors would have just 1-5 that year. Like, we're not gonna sit here and make the argument like Kawhi Leonard almost dethroned the Warriors 3 years ago, and then the dynasty killer. Like, okay, first
he's a dynasty killer.
In 2014, the Spurs were heavily favored coming into that series. Like, Miami was a huge underdog because of the injuries Dwayne Wade had suffered. Chris Bosh wasn't that great, and LeBron was on his last legs in Miami. Like, clearly. Okay, the Spurs came in as heavy favorites. Kawhi just happened to play the best out of all of them, although I think that was quite a team effort with
his defense on LeBron, though.
Oh, you're right, because LeBron only averaged, 30 a game that series?
It was good defense when it mattered. It's good enough to win the series.
Yeah, sure, I guess, but I wouldn't call that dynasty dethroning more than just a coincidental timing of Miami. Just
okay.
There was a lot of noise coming out of the Miami camp that LeBron was going to leave at the end of the season, regardless of whether or not Miami won the championship that year, and the fact that they got destroyed by the Spurs only accelerated that timeline or made it a reality. And okay, in Game 5 of the NBA Finals this year, Kevin Durant came back, scored 11 points in 10 minutes with Kawhi as the primary defender, and then got hurt. Okay?
Talk about small sample sizes.
Yeah, but we're talking about a Warriors team that was not fully loaded. Klay was hurt the entire series after Game 2. KD was gone except for 11 minutes where he lit the league on fire, where he lit the Raptors on fire. And I think I'm fully confident the Warriors would have won in 5 games had they been fully healthy. That being said, health is something that you can't make excuses for. So congratulations, Kawhi. But I don't think you're a dynasty destroyer like everyone's been making it out to believe. I think you're a great player though. Top 5.
All right, he's a dynasty destroyer, and I'm so excited for this year. I hope that the Celtics win the championship, but if they don't, I'm so excited for Kawhi to destroy these. His haters are always going to bring up these excuses, and he's done it twice now, and it's just like more excuses. But now, if he does it a 3rd time with the Clippers, 3rd time Finals MVP, 3rd different team, he's going to prove he can do it anywhere, and he's going to prove you wrong. So you have them winning the championship anyway. So what, are you going to change your mind after they win?
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, I have them winning the championship because they're the best team. Like the reason why I'm picking the Clippers isn't because of Kawhi or Paul George. It's because that Kawhi and Paul George plus that team makes them the best. If LeBron and Anthony Davis were on the Clippers, I'd pick the Clippers. If Harden and Westbrook were on the Clippers instead of Kawhi and Paul George, I'd pick the Clippers. Like that. Like, I think that team is so underrated. Lou Williams averaged 30 points a game in that series, and he's there. Like, he's still there. Like, they didn't lose anybody.
I hear you. I guess we'll just have to get ready for more excuses about Kawhi when the Clippers win again, and he wins Finals MVP again.
I don't know about. Okay, I'm not gonna make an excuse. Okay, like here's the thing. Like, if Kawhi Leonard wins the championship, wins Finals MVP, he deserves immense credit for that. And I would argue that, like, winning 3 different places is crazy, and I think it's great. And I think that Kawhi has been a proven winner. Like, I'm not gonna make the argument that he's not, but I just don't think he's like the dynasty killer, the clutch shot maker, like the guy that's insane. Even though he, like, all of this is just off one shot against Philadelphia.
It was so clutch.
Oh man, that was so lucky. But it's okay. It doesn't matter because Kawhi's great, and Toronto deserved to win that, and Kawhi played great. Okay, and Kawhi's going to play great next year, and Kawhi's going to prove that he's a top 5 player, and they're going to win the championship because that team is great, and Kawhi's great, and Paul George is great. That being said, like he's not like I think he's a little overrated right now, to put it like that.
Top 5. Maybe we can have our player rankings at the next podcast. All right. Well, this season is going to be a ton of fun, and we're going to walk you through it with many of these podcasts. I don't know how frequently yet. Maybe every week, maybe multiple times a week will surprise you. So it's going to be a great year. And this has been the first episode of Full Court Press. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Michael Lyon. This is Rish Bhatnagar, and we'll see you for the next episode.